The old Ford pickup truck coughed and rattled to a stop on the shoulder of a dusty country road, its faded blue paint peeling like sunburned skin under the relentless July sun. Ethan Caldwell stepped out, his warm boots crunching against the gravel, a tow rope dangling from his calloused hands. At 34, his broad shoulders carried the weight of a 500-acre farm and debts that seemed to grow faster than the corn in his fields. His hazel eyes, creased by years of squinting against the Iowa sky, scanned the horizon where a sleek black Mercedes sat stranded, its hazard lights blinking like a distress signal in the golden haze. Ethan's first instinct was to keep driving. His day had already stretched into 14 grueling hours, battling a failing irrigation system, coaxing a tractor older than him to life, and dodging another call from the bank about his overdue loan. The last thing he needed was someone else's problem, but something stopped him. Maybe it was the voice of his father, long gone, but still echoing in his head about doing right by folks. Or maybe it was the oddity of a luxury car like that on this stretch of nowhere, 20 miles from Riverdale's modest Main Street. He sighed, adjusted his faded baseball cap, and walked toward the car. A woman stood beside the Mercedes, her posture straight despite the heat shimmering off the asphalt. She was speaking into her phone, her free hand gesturing sharply, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that swayed with her movements. Up close, she was striking her casual jeans and white blouse, somehow pristine despite the dust, her presence an anomaly against the endless fields. Ethan cleared his throat. "Car trouble?" he called, keeping his tone neutral. She lowered her phone, her dark eyes assessing him with a mix of caution and relief. "Yes," she said, slipping the device into a handbag that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly mortgage. "It just died. No warning. And apparently, the nearest tow is 2 hours out." Her voice was crisp, confident, with a hint of frustration. Ethan nodded, unsurprised. "That's Riverdale for you. Not exactly a hub of civilization. Mind if I take a look? I'm no mechanic, but I've learned a thing or two keeping my gear running." He gestured toward her car, and after a brief hesitation, she nodded. "Double quotes, please. I'm Lauren, by the way. Lauren Mitchell." She extended a hand, her nails short and unpainted, which surprised him. He'd expected polish, something flashy to match the car. "Ethan Caldwell," he replied, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, steady. "Farm's a couple miles up the road." "What do you grow?" she asked, her eyes flickering with interest as he moved toward the Mercedes. "Bit of everything. Corn, soybeans, some wheat." Ethan slid into the driver's seat, the interior smelling of leather and a faint floral perfume that reminded him of the wildflowers along his property line. He turned the key, and a faint clicking confirmed his suspicion. "Alternator's gone," he said, climbing out. "Can't fix that here. You'll need a tow in a garage." Lauren sighed, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "And as I've learned, that's not happening tonight." Ethan glanced at his watch, then at the sky, where the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the fields. Night would bring a sharp chill, and the next car might not pass until morning. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "Maplewood Inn. I have a reservation." She named Riverdale's only hotel, a quaint 2-story building that mostly served traveling salespeople. "That's about 15 miles. I can give you a lift if you'd like. We can call about your car from town." Ethan watched as Lauren studied him, her gaze lingering on his work-stained jeans, the frayed edges of his flannel shirt, and the truck that looked like it belonged in a museum. He wouldn't have blamed her for saying no. "That's very kind," she said finally, a small smile breaking through her guarded expression. "Let me grab my bag." Ethan helped her transfer a modest suitcase from the Mercedes to his truck. As she locked her car, he noticed the way her hand lingered on the hood, almost affectionately. "Nice car," he commented as they climbed into his pickup. The contrast couldn't have been starker. His dashboard was dust-covered, the seats patched with duct tape, the air heavy with the scent of engine oil and hay. Lauren settled into the passenger seat, seemingly unbothered by the truck's condition. "Yours is character," she said, her fingers tracing the cracked dashboard lightly. "How long have you had it?" "Was my dad's," Ethan said, turning the key. The engine sputtered to life with a familiar rattle. "He bought it used when I was 10. That's 24 years now. Surprised it's still running, honestly." As they pulled onto the road, he caught Lauren casting one last glance at her abandoned Mercedes, her expression unreadable, not frustration, but something closer to curiosity. "So, what brings you to Riverdale?" Ethan asked as they bumped along the uneven road. "We don't get many visitors, especially not in—" He hesitated, searching for a polite way to finish. "Expensive cars?" Lauren supplied with a wry smile. "I'm here for work. A research trip of sorts." "Research? You a scientist or something?" Ethan's tone was light, but he was genuinely curious. She laughed, the sound warm and unexpected in the truck's cramped cab. "Or something. I work for an automotive company. Looking at properties, getting a feel for the area." Her eyes scanned the passing landscape, where the setting sun bathed the fields in a golden glow, transforming the ordinary into something almost magical. "An automotive company in Riverdale?" Ethan's brow furrowed. "That's new." "What kind of project?" "We're considering rural locations," she said vaguely, her gaze fixed on a distant farmhouse. "This area has potential." Ethan couldn't imagine what potential his struggling hometown held for a car company, but he let it go. Instead, he pointed out landmarks as they drove. Whose farm was whose, which fields were fallow, which roads flooded in spring. Lauren listened intently, asking questions about crop rotation and water management that caught him off guard. She wasn't just being polite. She seemed genuinely interested. Done. As they neared town, Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it, but the vibration was a reminder of the voicemail he'd avoided all day. The bank had called again, their tone growing sharper with each message. The irrigation system needed a $80,000 overhaul, and without it, another season might be his last. The farm his family had held for 4 generations could slip through his fingers. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, pushing the thought away. "You okay?" Lauren's voice broke through his reverie, her eyes searching his face. "Yeah," he lied, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about chores, waiting at home." The Maplewood Inn came into view, its faded sign glowing faintly against the dusk. Ethan pulled into the lot and cut the engine, the sudden silence heavy. "Thanks for the ride," Lauren said, reaching for her bag. "I really appreciate it." "No problem." Ethan hesitated, then added, "I could pick you up tomorrow. Take you back to your car. Help arrange a tow." Lauren paused, her hand on the door. "You've already done enough." "It's no trouble," he insisted, surprising himself with the offer. "I'm heading to town anyway for supplies." It wasn't entirely true, but something about her, the way she'd looked at his truck, the curiosity in her questions, made him reluctant to let this be the end of their encounter. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "If you're—" "Sure. Thank you, Ethan." Her smile was brief but genuine, and as she stepped out, Ethan watched her slender figure disappear through the hotel's glass doors. Only then did he realize he hadn't asked what time to pick her up. He sat in the lot for a minute, debating whether to go after her, then decided it would seem too eager. 8 o'clock tomorrow would do. As he drove home, the truck's familiar creaks filled the silence, but his thoughts were on Lauren Mitchell. Her clothes, her car, her polished way of speaking, they screamed wealth, yet she'd seemed at ease. In his beat-up Ford, asking about his land like it mattered. Something didn't add up, but as the farmhouse came into view, its peeling paint stark against the twilight, Ethan told himself he was overthinking. She was just a stranded traveler. And tomorrow, he'd help her get back on her way. Inside, he heated leftover stew, the kitchen quiet except for the hum of the fridge. His phone buzzed again, and this time, he checked it. A voicemail from First Riverdale Bank. Mr. Caldwell, we need to discuss your loan status. Please call us by Monday. Ethan deleted it, his jaw tight. He wasn't ready to face that conversation, not yet. Instead, he thought about Lauren's Mercedes, gleaming and out of place, and wondered what kind of research could bring someone like her to a place like this. The sun was barely cresting the horizon when Ethan Caldwell pulled his creaking Ford pickup into the gravel lot of the Maplewood Inn, its faded neon sign still flickering from the night before. At 8:05, the air held a crisp edge, the promise of another scorching Iowa day lingering just out of reach. Ethan adjusted his cap, his hands still stained with grease from a pre-dawn repair on the irrigation pump that had sputtered out again. He'd barely slept, his mind tangled with thoughts of bank voicemails, crop yields, and strangely Lauren Mitchell, the woman whose gleaming Mercedes had seemed so out of place on Riverdale's backroads. He debated waiting in the truck, but caught sight of Lauren stepping through the inn's glass doors, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, dressed in dark jeans, a simple green t-shirt, and leather ankle boots. She looked less like a stranded motorist and more like someone who belonged here, her confident stride softened by a smile that made Ethan's pulse quicken. She spotted his truck and waved, her sunglasses catching the morning light. "Morning," she said, climbing into the passenger seat with an ease that surprised him. "You're punctual." "Morning," Ethan replied, suddenly aware of the coffee stain on his flannel sleeve. "Sleep okay?" "Surprisingly well." Lauren settled in, her gaze drifting over the truck's worn interior. "And the meatloaf at the diner was excellent. You have good taste." Ethan felt a flicker of pride at the compliment, absurd as it was. "Glad you liked it. I called Tom Harper's garage this morning. They can tow your car, but he says it'll take a few days to get an alternator for a Mercedes. Not exactly common around here." Lauren nodded, unfazed. "I figured as much. Actually, I was wondering." She paused, her tone shifting to something carefully casual. "I need to look at some properties in the area for my work. Would you be willing to show me around?" "I'd compensate you for your time, of course." Ethan blinked, caught off guard. "Show you around?" "I mean, I could. But Riverdale's not exactly a hotbed of real estate. Just farms, mostly, and not many for sale." "I'm interested in the farmland," Lauren clarified, her eyes meeting his. "You clearly know the area, and I'd value your perspective." Ethan should have said no. The south field needed weeding, the cattle needed checking, and he had a meeting with a seed supplier he'd already postponed twice. But the prospect of spending more time with this enigmatic woman was too tempting. Her questions yesterday about crop rotation, water shortages hadn't felt like small talk. She'd listened like she cared, and that was rarer than rain in July. "I can move some things around," he said, aiming for nonchalance. "No need to pay me, though. Call it Riverdale hospitality." Lauren's smile was genuine, transforming her face. "Thank you, Ethan. That's kind of you." They drove to her stranded Mercedes first, the sleek car looking even more alien in the morning light. Ethan helped Lauren retrieve a few items, a leather notebook, a camera before calling Tom Harper's tow service. As they waited, Lauren wandered a short distance away, phone to her ear, her voice low but animated. Ethan couldn't make out the words, but her gestures suggested a heated discussion. He wondered who was on the other end, what kind of life she led beyond this dusty road. Tom arrived in his tow truck, his weathered face breaking into a grin when he saw Ethan. "Fancy car for these parts," he said, raising an eyebrow at Lauren, then giving Ethan a look that was half curious, half teasing. Ethan ignored it, focusing on securing the Mercedes. Once Tom drove off, promising to see what Mike can do, Lauren rejoined him. "So," Ethan said, leaning against his truck, "where do you want to start this tour?" Lauren considered, then said, "I'd like to see your farm, if that's not too much. I'm curious about how things work around here." Ethan hesitated. His farm was no showcase rusted equipment, patched up barns, fields patchy from the failing irrigation system. But Lauren's expression was earnest, her dark eyes holding. "No judgment." "Sure," he said finally. "Just don't expect anything fancy." The drive to his farm was filled with easy conversation. Lauren asked about the local economy, the challenges farmers faced, and how technology had changed agriculture. Ethan found himself explaining things he took for granted: soil testing, market fluctuations, the constant gamble against weather. Her questions were sharp, thoughtful, revealing a mind that absorbed details like a sponge. "So, these big ag companies," Lauren said as they turned onto the dirt road leading to his property, "they're buying up small farms when owners can't make ends meet?" Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. "Happening all over. The Ensign place sold last year. The Harpers are thinking about it too. Their kids don't want to farm, and they're getting too old to keep up. And you." Lauren's tone was careful. "Are you managing?" "I'm doing all right," Ethan said, the lie bitter on his tongue. He couldn't admit how close he was to losing everything, not to a stranger, no matter how easy she was to talk to. If Lauren sensed his discomfort, she didn't press. Instead, she looked out at his fields, now visible in the distance. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "All of it?" For a moment, Ethan saw it through her eyes. The golden corn swaying in the breeze, the cluster of weathered buildings, the oak trees his great-grandfather had planted. It was beautiful, despite the cracks in its foundation. He parked in front of the farmhouse, a two-story clapboard structure with peeling paint and a porch that sagged slightly. "This is home," he said, stepping out. Lauren stood for a moment, taking it in. "It has history," she said. "You can feel it." 4 generations, Ethan confirmed. Great-grandfather built it in 1923. Added on over the years, but the bones are the same. He led her on a tour, showing her the barn where he stored his aging equipment, the grain silos, the cattle pasture. Lauren asked to see the irrigation system, and Ethan showed her the cobbled-together network of pipes and pumps that haunted his nights. "It's mostly functional," he said, crouching to point out a leaking junction. "But it's inefficient, wastes water, breaks down every few weeks. I spend more time fixing it than farming." Lauren knelt beside him, her fingers brushing the rusty pipe. "You need a complete overhaul," she said. Not a question, but a statement. "Yeah," Ethan admitted, standing. "But that's money I don't have." She nodded, brushing dust from her jeans. "And the truck? You maintain that yourself?" "Most of it. Basic stuff, minor repairs. Saves me a trip to Tom's garage." Ethan led her back toward the house. Suddenly self-conscious about what she must see, a struggling farmer, barely holding on, living in a house that needed as much repair as his equipment. Inside, the farmhouse was cool and dim, the air smelling faintly of wood and coffee. Ethan offered water, and while he filled glasses, Lauren wandered into the living room, pausing at a framed photo on the mantel. It showed a teenage Ethan beside his father, both grinning beside the blue Ford. "Your dad?" she asked, accepting. The glass he handed her. "Yeah, day he bought the truck. I was 10. Thought it was the coolest thing ever." Ethan's chest tightened at the memory, his father's laughter echoing in his mind. "You look like him," Lauren said, studying the photo. "He taught you about farming?" "And vehicles," Ethan said, taking a sip to steady himself. "Said a man should know the tools he depends on." They sat on the worn sofa, and Ethan found himself talking more than he had in years about. His father's fight against cancer, the medical bills that had nearly bankrupted the farm, the weight of carrying on a legacy that felt like it was slipping away. Lauren listened, her questions gentle but probing, drawing out stories Ethan hadn't shared since his father's funeral. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Ethan frowned, not expecting anyone. Standing on the porch was Mark Sullivan, a slick representative from Agricorp, a conglomerate that had been sniffing around Riverdale for months. His suit was out of place against the dusty backdrop, his smile too polished. "Mr. Caldwell," Mark began, holding out a business card. "I was in the area and thought I'd stop by. Agricorp's interested in your land. We could make you an offer that'd take care of those loans I hear you're struggling with." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Not selling," he said flatly. "This farm's been in my family for generations." Mark's smile didn't waver. "I understand. But think it over. Small farms are tough these days. We're just trying to help." He handed Ethan the card and left, his SUV kicking up dust as it disappeared down the drive. Lauren, who'd overheard from the doorway, looked at Ethan with concern. "Is that common? Companies like that?" "Too common," Ethan said, tossing the card onto the kitchen counter. "They smell blood in the water." She didn't push, but her expression was thoughtful as they returned to their tour. They spent the afternoon visiting other properties' empty lots. A neighbor's fallow field, Lauren taking notes in her leather notebook, snapping photos with her camera. Her questions grew more specific: water access, soil quality, proximity to highways. Ethan answered, intrigued by her intensity, but still wondering what an automotive company could want with Riverdale's dirt. As the sun dipped low, they stopped at the diner for dinner. Betty Thompson, the waitress, raised an eyebrow when she saw them together. "You know Ethan, then?" she asked Lauren as she poured water. "Not really," Lauren admitted. "My car broke down, and he gave me a ride." Betty nodded approvingly. "That's Ethan for you. Salt of the earth. Been rough since his dad passed, though. Farm's struggling, like most around here." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Big companies like Agricorp don't help, circling like vultures." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, but Lauren's eyes softened with understanding. Over meatloaf and mashed potatoes, their conversation drifted to lighter topics. Thunderstorms they both loved, the chaos of cities they both disliked. Lauren laughed at Ethan's story of getting his truck stuck in a mud pit at 16, and he found himself grinning at her tale of sneaking into her grandfather's garage to tinker with car engines as a kid. As he drove her back to the inn, the stars beginning to pierce the twilight, Ethan realized he hadn't thought about the bank or the irrigation system all day. Lauren's presence was like a break in the clouds, brief but welcome. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked as he pulled into the lot. "If you're sure you want to see more of nowhere," Ethan said, half teasing. "I do," Lauren replied, her smile lingering as she stepped out. "Good night, Ethan." He watched her disappear into the inn, the warmth of her voice staying with him as he drove home. But as he passed the kitchen counter, Mark Sullivan's card caught his eye, a stark reminder of the reality waiting for him. Lauren Mitchell might be a pleasant distraction, but his problems weren't going anywhere, and neither was he. The morning sun climbed over Riverdale's endless fields, its light glinting off the dew that clung to Ethan Caldwell's cornstalks. Ethan pulled his Ford pickup into the Maplewood Inn's lot at 8 sharp, the engine's familiar rattle, a steady counterpoint to the unease knotting his stomach. Yesterday, with Lauren Mitchell, had been disarming. Her thoughtful questions, her laughter at the diner, the way she'd looked at his farm like it was more than a patchwork of debt and decay. It had stirred something in him he hadn't felt since before his father died. But as he adjusted his cap, his gaze flickering to the inn's glass doors, He reminded himself she was just passing through. A stranger with a fancy car and a vague job wouldn't change the fact that his bank was breathing down his neck. Lauren emerged, her dark hair pulled back, dressed in jeans and a navy blouse that looked simple, but probably wasn't. She climbed into the truck with a smile that made Ethan's chest tighten. "Morning," she said, settling in. "Ready for round 3? "Morning," Ethan replied, his voice gruffer than intended. "You're sticking with the Nowhere tour, huh?" "Wouldn't miss it," she said, her tone light but her eyes searching his. "I was thinking we could see more of the surrounding farms today. Maybe talk to some locals about their equipment needs?" Ethan nodded, starting the engine. Her interest in Riverdale's struggling farms was puzzling, but he couldn't deny the appeal of another day with her. They drove toward the Harper farm. First, where Lauren took notes in her leather-bound notebook, asking Tom Harper about his aging tractors and the cost of repairs. Tom, a grizzled man who'd known Ethan's father, answered gruffly but warmed to Lauren's genuine curiosity. Ethan watched, impressed by her ability to draw people out. But a nagging question lingered. Why did an automotive company care about tractor maintenance? As they left the Harper place, Lauren's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression tightening. "I need to take this," she said, stepping a few paces away. Ethan leaned against the truck, pretending not to listen, but her voice carried, faintly on the breeze. "Ryan, I'm not ready to report back yet. Yes, I know the board's impatient, but this is more than data collection. I found someone who understands what we're aiming for." She paused, her free hand gesturing sharply. "No, it's not just research. It's real." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Research? Data collection?" The words hit like a cold wind, stirring unease. Was he part of some study? A case file in her notebook? He pushed the thought away as Lauren rejoined him, her smile strained. "Everything okay?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. "Just work," she said, climbing into the truck. "Let's head to your farm next, if that's all right. I'd like to see more of your setup." Ethan nodded, but the drive to his property was quieter, his mind replaying her words. At the farm, he showed her the cattle barn, where he'd patched the roof with salvaged tin, and the grain silos, their paint flaking like old skin. Lauren's questions grew technical about fuel efficiency in his equipment, the durability of his truck's engine, the water pressure in his irrigation system. She examined a rusted pump with surprising expertise, her fingers tracing the welds he'd made last spring. "You've kept this running longer than most would," she said, standing and brushing dust from her hands. "How often do you have to repair it?" "Every other week," Ethan admitted, crouching beside her. "It's a losing battle. Whole system needs replacing, but that's a pipe dream." Lauren nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And your truck? You mentioned you do most of the maintenance yourself. What's the toughest part to keep going?" "Timing belt's a pain," Ethan said, glancing at the Ford parked nearby. "But I manage. Dad taught me to make things last." He stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Why all the questions about my gear? Your company planning to sell tractors now?" Lauren laughed, but it sounded forced. "Not quite. We're exploring practical vehicles, ones that can handle real work. Like yours." Her vagueness reignited Ethan's unease, but before he could press, her phone buzzed again. She sighed, checking it. "Sorry, I need to deal with this. Mind if I step away?" "Go ahead," Ethan said, watching as she walked toward the oak-lined driveway, her voice low but intense. This time, he caught more. "Ryan, tell the board I'm onto something here. Yes, I know the Heartland project's a risk, but people like him are exactly who we're designing for. No, I'm not compromising. The timeline." She turned, catching Ethan's gaze, and quickly ended the call. Ethan's jaw tightened. "People like him?" The phrase stung, like he was a specimen under her lens. "Something you want to tell me?" he asked as she approached, his tone sharper than intended. Lauren hesitated, her eyes searching his. "It's just work. Complicated. Project stuff." "Sounded like I'm part of that project," Ethan said, crossing his arms. "What's this Heartland thing? And why am I exactly who you're designing for?" Lauren's face paled slightly, but she held his gaze. "Ethan, it's not what you think. Then what is it?" He cut in, his voice rising. "You show up with your fancy car, asking about my farm, my truck, like you're writing a report. Am I just research to you? Some rural guy you can study for your big city bosses?" "No," Lauren said quickly, stepping closer. "It started as research, yes, but it's more than that now. You're more than that." Ethan shook his head, the hurt outweighing her words. "You could have been straight with me from the start. Instead, you're playing some game, and I'm the fool who didn't see it." He turned toward the house, meeting distance, but her voice stopped him. "Ethan, wait, please." Her tone was raw, urgent. He paused, glancing back. "I owe you the truth," she said, taking a deep breath. "My name's Lauren Mitchell, Lauren Blackwell Mitchell. My grandfather founded Mitchell Motors. My mother's the CEO. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer." Ethan stared, the words sinking in like stones. Mitchell Motors, one of the biggest auto manufacturers in the country, a name synonymous with luxury cars and corporate power. Lauren wasn't just some employee. She was automotive royalty. "You're—" He trailed off, pieces falling into place: her car, her questions, the way she'd studied his truck like it held secrets. "This whole time, you've been what? Slumming it for a project?" Lauren flinched, but her voice stayed steady. "I came here to research a new line of vehicles, the Heartland series. Practical, durable trucks for rural areas, built to last, not just to sell. I needed to understand the people who'd use them, their challenges, their needs. But I didn't tell you who I was because—" She hesitated, her eyes softening. "When people know my name, they see the money, the company, not me. With you, I felt like Lauren, not a Mitchell. For the first time in years." Ethan's anger wavered, her sincerity cutting through his defenses. He thought of his father, who'd always said to judge people by their actions, not their words. Lauren had listened to him, laughed with him, cared about his world in a way no one had in years. But the gulf between them, his struggling farm, her corporate empire, felt unbridgeable. "So, what now?" he asked, his voice quieter. "You get your data and go back to your boardroom?" "No," Lauren said, stepping closer. "I want you to be part of this. I'm proposing a partnership, a consulting contract. You'd advise our team, test prototypes, tell us what works for farmers like you. Your expertise, Ethan, it's what this project needs." Ethan's eyes widened. "You want me to work for Mitchell Motors? I'm a farmer, not an engineer." "You're exactly who we need," Lauren insisted. "You've kept that truck running for 24 years. You know what durability means, what reliability looks like. That's worth more than a dozen PhDs. In a lab." She paused, her voice softening. "And I'd like to keep working with you, not just for the project." The implication hung between them, heavy with possibility. Ethan's heart pounded, torn between the hurt of her deception and the pull of her words. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed another call from the bank, the third this week. He ignored it, but the reminder of his reality grounded him. "I need to think about this," he said finally. "It's a lot." Lauren nodded, understanding. In her eyes, "Of course. But I'm leaving tomorrow morning. My car's fixed, and I'm needed back in Detroit. Can we talk one more time? Breakfast at the diner? 7 o'clock? Ethan hesitated, then nodded. 7. Lauren gathered her notebook, her movements slower now, For what it's worth, she said, pausing at the truck's door. Your farm, your truck, they're not just data to me. They're proof of what I want to build. Something real, something that lasts. She met his gaze, her eyes earnest. Thank you for showing me that. She climbed in, and the drive to the inn was silent. The easy camaraderie of the past 2 days fractured. Ethan's mind churned, replaying her confession, her offer, the way she'd looked at his father's photo like she understood its weight. As he pulled into the lot, Lauren turned to him. I'm sorry I wasn't up front, she said softly. I hope you'll give me a chance to make it right. Ethan didn't answer, his hands tight on the wheel. She stepped out, her figure disappearing into the inn, leaving him alone with the hum of the cooling engine. The drive home was a blur, his thoughts a tangle of betrayal and possibility. Inside the farmhouse, he sank onto the sofa, staring at the photo of his father in the truck. His dad had taught him to fix what was broken, to trust in hard work and good people. But could he trust Lauren, a woman whose world was so far from his? He pulled Mark Sullivan's AgriCorp card from the counter, its crisp edges a stark contrast to the worn wood. Selling the farm would erase his debts, give him a fresh start. But it would also erase his father's legacy, the life Ethan had fought for. Lauren's offer was different, a chance to save the farm, maybe even shape something bigger. But it meant stepping into her world, risking more than just his pride. As he heated leftover coffee, Ethan's gaze drifted to the window, where the fields stretched dark and silent under the stars. Tomorrow's breakfast would be his chance to decide not just about a job, but about whether he could believe in a woman who'd hidden her truth, but shown him hers in every other way. The old Ford pickup coughed its way down the dirt road leading to Ethan Caldwell's farmhouse, its familiar rattle a stark contrast to the decision weighing on his mind. 3 days ago, Ethan had stood on this same road, sweat-soaked and grease-stained, replacing a burst hose in the truck's aging engine. As he tightened the last bolt, Lauren Mitchell's words had echoed. Your truck is proof of what I want to build, something real, something that lasts. Her offer, a consulting contract with Mitchell Motors, a chance to save his farm and shape a new line of vehicles, had seemed impossible then. But now, as the sun dipped below the Iowa horizon, painting the fields in shades of amber, Ethan knew he couldn't stay still any longer. He sat at the kitchen table, the worn wood scarred from decades of family meals, and dialed the number on Lauren's business card. His heart thudded as it rang twice before her voice answered, crisp but warm. Lauren Mitchell. It's Ethan, he said, his voice catching slightly. Ethan Caldwell. A pause, then her tone softened, laced with unmistakable hope. Ethan, I'm so glad you called. I've been thinking about your proposal, he said, pacing the linoleum floor. And I'm interested, but I've got conditions. Name them, Lauren replied without hesitation. First, I want to say in the design process, not just testing. If these trucks are for folks like me, I need to be in from the start. Ethan's voice grew steadier, his resolve firming. Absolutely, Lauren said. That's what I want too. Second, I stay based here on my farm. I can travel for meetings or tests, but this is home. We can make that work, she assured him. Most testing will happen there, and we'll set up video calls for design meetings. Ethan took a deep breath, his final condition heavier than the rest. And third, I need to know if this is just business for you, or if there's something more. The silence stretched, and for a moment, Ethan feared he'd overstepped. Then Lauren spoke, her voice softer, almost vulnerable. It started as business, Ethan, but those days with you, they were the most real I've had in years. So yes, there's something more. At least, I hope there can be. Relief flooded him, warm and grounding. Good, he said simply, because I feel the same. I'm coming back next week, Lauren said, a smile evident in her voice. To look at the Harper property again. We're considering it for a testing facility. Can we talk more then? Next week works, Ethan agreed, his mind already racing. As they hung up, he stood in the quiet kitchen, the weight of his decision settling over him. Detroit, Mitchell Motors, Lauren. It was a world away from Riverdale's fields, but for the first time in years, the future felt like more than a losing battle. The week passed in a blur. Ethan arranged for his neighbor, Jack Ramsey, to check on the cattle and house during his winter absence. He fixed a broken porch step, touched up the farmhouse's peeling paint, and cleared his father's old office, imagining it as a workspace for the project. When Lauren's Mercedes rolled up the driveway, exactly 7 days later, Ethan was waiting on the porch, his heart doing a foolish little leap at the sight of her stepping out. She looked different, still polished, but more relaxed in jeans and boots like those she'd worn before. Her dark hair was loose, catching the late autumn breeze. "Welcome back," Ethan said, descending the steps. "It's good to be here," Lauren replied, her smile warm and unguarded. They stood for a moment, shy despite their phone calls, until she stepped forward and hugged him, a quick, impulsive gesture that Ethan returned, his arms lingering a beat longer than necessary. "I brought something," she said, pulling back. "For us, for the project." She opened her trunk, revealing a sleek laptop and a folder of documents. "Initial designs for the legacy line. I want your honest opinion." They spent the morning at the kitchen table, poring over blueprints. Lauren explained the spec steel frames for durability, modular body panels for easy repairs, a spacious engine compartment for owner maintenance. Ethan pointed out practical tweaks. "This storage compartment's smart, but it needs external access. Farmers grab tools fast without climbing in." Lauren scribbled notes, her enthusiasm infectious. Their hands brushed as they turned pages, the contact sending a quiet thrill through Ethan. After lunch sandwiches eaten on the porch, as storm clouds gathered, they drove to the Harper property. Tom and his wife, Ellen, showed them around, delighted at the prospect of their land being used for something innovative rather than swallowed by AgriCorp. "You two make a good team," Ellen said, her eyes twinkling as they walked back to Ethan's truck. Ethan and Lauren exchanged glances, neither correcting the assumption, though the air between them hummed with unspoken possibility. The storm broke as they drove back, rain lashing the windshield, thunder rumbling overhead. "Should we wait it out?" Lauren asked as Ethan parked in front of the farmhouse, visibility reduced to a blur. "Smart move," Ethan said. "These storms pass quick but hit hard." They dashed to the porch, riding soaked and laughing despite the short sprint. Inside, Ethan grabbed towels, handing one to Lauren. "Should have checked the forecast," he said, toweling his hair. "Sorry." "Don't be," Lauren said, her eyes bright. "I love storms. In the city, they're just nuisances. Here, they're alive." Her damp hair curled slightly, a droplet tracing down her neck. Ethan looked away, the moment feeling too intimate. "Coffee? Or I've got hot chocolate somewhere," he offered, needing something to do. "Hot chocolate," Lauren said, her voice warm. As Ethan heated milk, she wandered into the living room, pausing at the mantel's photos. When he joined her with steaming mugs, she was studying one of Ethan and his father beside the truck. "He'd be proud of you," she said, accepting her mug. "Keeping this place going, taking on something like the legacy line." Ethan's chest ached at the thought. "Hope so. He always said, fix what's broken. Don't throw it out. That's what your project feels like, fixing how people see vehicles." Lauren's smile was soft. "That's the goal. Vehicles that become part of lives, not just purchases." They sat on the sofa, the storm's rhythm outside matching the quiet cadence of their talk. Lauren shared stories of her grandfather, who'd started Mitchell Motors in a Detroit garage, dreaming of cars that inspired. Ethan spoke of his father's drought-defying innovations, his stubborn fight against cancer. The conversation flowed, unguarded, until the rain tapered off near midnight. "I should get back," Lauren said reluctantly, glancing at her watch. "My car's here." "Right," Ethan said, feeling foolish for forgetting. At the door, Lauren turned, her expression serious. "This partnership, it's important to me, Ethan. But what's happening between us? That's important too. I want to keep them separate, so neither complicates the other." Ethan nodded, understanding her fear. A failed project could sour their feelings. A broken relationship could derail their work. "We'll figure it out," he said, taking her hand, one day at a time. Her fingers laced with his, warm and strong, one day at a time. Their kiss was tentative, a question rather than an answer. But it left Ethan's heart racing as she drove away, her taillights fading down the drive. The next week, Ethan flew to Detroit, the first time he'd left Riverdale since his sister's wedding 3 years ago. Lauren met him at the airport, her tailored suit and elegant updo a stark contrast to the jeans-clad woman he'd kissed on his porch. But her smile was the same, and her hug defiant of the bustling terminal felt like home. "Welcome to Detroit," she said, taking his hand. The drive through the city was a sensory overload, towering glass buildings, honking traffic, neighborhoods blending grit and grandeur. Lauren pointed out landmarks, Mitchell Motors' gleaming headquarters, the original factory, now a museum, the research campus where the legacy line was born. "It's a city with history," she said, "like your farm." "Different stories," Ethan said, staring out at the urban sprawl. "But I get it." Lauren's downtown condo was a revelation: high ceilings, river views, a mix of modern furniture and antique touches that felt sophisticated yet lived in. "Not what I expected," Ethan admitted, setting his suitcase down. "Thought it'd be all marble and gold." Lauren laughed. "I spend enough time in sterile offices. This is my sanctuary." She showed him the guest room turned office, the kitchen she rarely used, the bedroom she shyly called ours. Ethan's throat tightened at the space she'd cleared for him, a silent promise of belonging. That evening, over takeout on the balcony, the city lights glittering below, Lauren asked, "Nervous about tomorrow?" Ethan was due at Mitchell headquarters, meeting the legacy line team. "A bit," he admitted. "Your world's a long way from my fields." "You'll be fine," she assured him. "They're excited to meet you. Your input's already shaped the project, even from Iowa." She squeezed his hand. "Just be you. That's why you're here." The next morning, Ethan dressed in his best jeans and a button-down, the sports jacket feeling stiff after years of flannel. Lauren adjusted his tie, her fingers deft. "You look perfect," she said. Professional, but authentic. Mitchell Motors' headquarters was a 60-story monolith of glass and steel, its lobby a cathedral of marble and art. Lauren led him to a private elevator, the ascent to the executive floor dizzying. James Parker, her assistant, greeted them with a warm handshake. "No, sorry, Ethan," he corrected, grinning. "Heard a lot about you. Ready to meet the team?" The conference room held 20 people: engineers, designers, marketers, whose eyes turned to Lauren as she entered, then to Ethan. "Good morning," Lauren said, her voice commanding. "This is Ethan Caldwell, our primary consultant for the legacy line. His expertise is driving this project." Ethan nodded, feeling like a display piece, but as Lauren introduced the team, he relaxed. These were people who spoke his language: durability, function, real-world use. Dr. Emily Kim, the lead engineer, showed him updated designs. "We've adjusted the suspension per your feedback," she said, pointing to specs, and added optional reinforced springs for heavy loads. Ethan examined the plans, suggesting tweaks to the engine compartment's layout for easier access. By the meeting's end, he felt a cautious optimism. These people respected his knowledge, and he was learning there's material science production constraints, things he'd never considered on his farm. As they left, Lauren asked, "What do you think?" "They're committed," Ethan said. "And they get it not just selling trucks, but building them to last." "That's why I picked them," Lauren said, her pride evident. Over the next weeks, Ethan settled into a rhythm days at headquarters. Testing prototypes, evenings with Lauren exploring Detroit's hidden corners. She showed him her grandfather's first shop, now a coffee house and a park where she'd escaped childhood pressures. Ethan shared stories of his brief college stint, his dream of modernizing the farm if he ever had the means. Their connection deepened, each moment a bridge between their worlds. One evening, as they tested a Legacy Line's UV prototype on a rural test track outside Detroit, Ethan ran his hand over its sturdy frame. "It's solid," he said, climbing out, "but the bed needs an optional extender for bigger loads like hay bales or equipment." Lauren noted it, her eyes bright. "This is why I need you. No simulation catches that." As they drove back, the city skyline looming, Ethan realized he wasn't just a visitor here. He was building something with Lauren, with Mitchell Motors that could outlast them both. Ethan Caldwell stood in the dim light of Lauren Mitchell's Detroit condo, staring out at the city's skyline, a constellation of glass and steel that felt worlds away from Riverdale's open fields. 3 weeks into his winter stint at Mitchell Motors, he'd grown accustomed to the hum of the city, the rhythm of design meetings, and the thrill of shaping the Legacy Line. But tonight, as snow flurried against the window, a restlessness gnawed at him. His neighbor Jack Ramsey had called earlier, reporting a minor storm that had damaged the irrigation system's already fragile pipes. The farm his anchor, his legacy, was calling, and Ethan wasn't sure how long he could stay away. Lauren emerged from the office, her dark hair loose, her tailored suit traded for a sweater and jeans. "You're quiet tonight," she said, joining him at the window. "Everything okay?" Ethan hesitated, his fingers tracing the edge of his coffee mug. Jack called. "Storm hit the farm, messed up the irrigation again. He's handling it." But he trailed off, the weight of his absence heavier than he'd expected. Lauren's eyes softened. "You're worried about home." "It's not just home," Ethan admitted, turning to face her. "It's everything I am. I'm here doing this." He gestured at the condo. "The city beyond, but part of me is still out there, wondering if I'm letting my dad's work slip away." Lauren took his hand, her touch grounding. "You're not letting anything slip. You're fighting for it in a new way. The Legacy Line could change things for your farm, for others like it." Ethan nodded, wanting to believe her, but the board meeting looming tomorrow cast a long shadow. Lauren had spent weeks preparing, compiling Ethan's prototype test data, focus group feedback, and cost projections to convince Mitchell Motors' board to fully fund the Legacy Line. Her mother, Margaret Mitchell, the CEO, was a formidable skeptic, favoring the company's lucrative luxury lines over untested ventures. If the board rejected the project, Ethan's consulting contract and the hope of saving his farm might vanish. "You ready for tomorrow?" he asked, shifting the focus. Lauren sighed, her grip tightening. "As ready as I'll get." Mother's pushing for another sports car line. She sees the Legacy Line as a gamble. She paused, her voice quieter. "But your data's solid, Ethan. The tests show durability. The focus groups love the concept. We just need to make them see it." Ethan squeezed her hand. "You will. You've got a way of making people believe in things." Her smile was faint but grateful. "I hope you're right." The next morning, Ethan dressed in the sports jacket that still felt stiff, his nerves jangling as they entered Mitchell Motors' towering headquarters. The boardroom was a sleek expanse of glass and mahogany, the table ringed by executives in tailored suits. Margaret Mitchell dominated the room, her silver-streaked hair severe, her gaze assessing Ethan with a cool precision that made him feel like a trespasser. Lauren, poised in a charcoal suit, launched into her presentation, her voice steady but charged with conviction. "The legacy line isn't just a product," she said, projecting Ethan's test results onto a screen. "It's a return to vehicles built for longevity, designed for people who rely on them daily: farmers, builders, families. Our prototypes, tested by Ethan Caldwell, show a 30% reduction in maintenance costs over standard models. Focus groups in rural markets rate durability and repairability as top priorities. This is a market we've ignored too long." Ethan watched the board, their expressions ranging from intrigued to skeptical. Margaret leaned forward, her voice cutting through the room. "Ambitious, Lauren. But production costs are 15% higher than our luxury lines, and the rural market's unproven. Why take the risk?" Lauren didn't flinch. "Because sustainability matters economically and environmentally. The legacy line's lower warranty claims and higher customer loyalty offset the costs. Ethan's insights prove we can build trucks that last decades, not just until the next model year." Margaret's gaze flicked to Ethan. "Mr. Caldwell, your farm's struggling, yes? Can you honestly say there's a market for these vehicles when farmers like you can't afford them?" Ethan's jaw tightened, but he met her eyes. "Farmers like me don't need flashy. We need reliable. My truck's 24 years old because I can fix it myself. Build something like that, price it fair, and you'll have buyers lining up." A murmur rippled through the room. Some nods, some raised eyebrows. Margaret's expression remained unreadable, but Lauren's glance held quiet pride. The meeting stretched on, questions flying: production timelines, marketing strategies, profit margins. By the end, Ethan's head spun, but Lauren's confidence never wavered. That evening, as they sat on her balcony, the city lights blurred by falling snow, Lauren's phone buzzed with the board's decision. She read the message, her face breaking into a radiant smile. "They approved it," she said, turning to Ethan. "Full funding, with a launch in 18 months. And they're expanding it to SUVs, compact trucks, even agricultural equipment. They're calling it the Mitchell Legacy Line." Ethan grinned, relief flooding him. "You did it, Lauren." "We did it," she corrected, her eyes shining. "Your data sealed it. They see the vision now." She leaned into him, her voice softening. "This is bigger than I dreamed." Ethan wrapped an arm around her, the victory sweet but tempered by a call from Jack that morning. The irrigation damage was worse than thought: $10,000 in repairs, money he didn't have. "I'm proud of this," he said, staring at the skyline. "But I can't shake the farm. It's pulling me back." Lauren pulled back, her expression serious. "I've been thinking about that. About us, the project, where we go next." She took a deep breath. "What if I moved to Riverdale? Not full-time. I'd still need Detroit for board meetings, but made it my primary home, with you." Ethan stared, certain he'd misheard. "You'd leave all this?" He gestured at the condo, the city. "Your life's here." "My life's wherever I'm happiest," Lauren said firmly. "And that's been with you in Riverdale. Your farm, your world, it's real in a way Detroit isn't. I want to build our future there, balance my work with something that lasts." The weight of her words settled over Ethan, mingling with the cold air. She was offering more than a partnership. She was choosing his world, his life. The doubt lingered. "What about your mother? The company?" "Mother will manage," Lauren said with a wry smile. "And I'm not leaving Mitchell Motors, just redefining my role. I can work remotely, travel when needed. But I want us to..." Be rooted somewhere that matters. Ethan's heart raced, torn between awe and fear. Before he could respond, an impulse seized him, one he'd been carrying since their kiss on his porch. "Hold that thought," he said, rising. He retrieved a small leather box from his suitcase, his grandmother's ring inside. It's simple, diamond glinting in the lamplight. He brought it on a whim, a quiet hope he hadn't dared voice until now. Back on the balcony, he knelt before her, the box open. "Lauren Blackwell Mitchell," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion, choking him. "If you're serious about Riverdale, about us, then I need to ask you something. I was gonna wait, make sure I wasn't asking you to give up too much. But you're all in, so I am too. Will you marry me?" Lauren's eyes widened, tears catching the light as they welled. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Ethan Caldwell, I will marry you." Her hand trembled as he slipped the ring on, a perfect fit, as if it had waited decades for her. She pulled him up, her kiss fierce and full of promise. The city fading around them as they stood, snow dusting their shoulders. Ethan thought of his father, who taught him to build things that endure. The legacy line, this love, they were. His father's lessons made real. "It's not fancy," he said, nodding at the ring. "Not like you're used to." "It's perfect," Lauren said, her voice fierce. "It's history, like your truck, your farm, like us." They returned to the condo, plans spilling out her move. The project's next phase, a wedding they'd planned in Riverdale's fields. The challenges ahead balancing their worlds, facing Margaret's scrutiny loomed. But for now, their commitment was enough. As Ethan held her, the skyline glittering below, he knew they were building something that would outlast any storm. Snow fell softly over Riverdale's rolling fields, transforming Ethan Caldwell's 500-acre farm into a winter postcard. The farmhouse, its clapboard freshly touched up, glowed warmly against the gray December sky, icicles glinting like ornaments. Along the eaves, Ethan stood on the porch, his breath visible in the crisp air, watching Lauren Mitchell's rental car, a modest SUV, not her usual Mercedes crunch up the snowy driveway. 6 months ago, he'd stopped to help a stranded stranger on a dusty road. Now, that stranger was his fiancée, her diamond ring catching the light as she stepped out, her smile brighter than the sun breaking through the clouds. "Merry Christmas," Lauren called, her dark hair dusted with snow, her arms laden with gift bags. She wore a wool coat over jeans, her urban polish softened by the rural setting. "Merry Christmas," Ethan replied, descending the steps to meet her. Their embrace was warm, unhurried, a homecoming that felt as natural as the land around them. "Flight okay?" "Fine," Lauren said, pulling back to study him. "You look content." Ethan grinned, the weight of the past year doubts, Detroit-lighter now. "I am. You're here." He took her bags, leading her inside where the scent of pine and cider filled the air. A small Christmas tree, cut from his back lot, stood in the living room, adorned with his family's mismatched ornaments. They'd arrived in Riverdale on Christmas Eve, after a whirlwind week in Detroit. The Mitchell Motors Gala, where Ethan had navigated Margaret Mitchell's probing days in a rented tuxedo, had been a stark contrast to this quiet retreat. But Lauren had insisted on spending the holiday here, away from corporate glitter, and Ethan couldn't have loved her more for it. Jack Ramsey, his neighbor, had kept the house warm, leaving a homemade pie and a note. "Welcome back. You too. As." They settled in. Lauren unpacked a gift that left Ethan speechless, a thick envelope containing plans for a state-of-the-art irrigation system, fully funded by Mitchell Motors, set for installation in spring. "Lauren," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "this is too much." "It's not," she countered gently, taking his hand. "Your work on the legacy line has saved us millions in redesigns and warranties. This is an investment. Your farm, in our future. Her eyes held his, earnest. Consider it a thank you for letting me into your world. Ethan pulled her close, the plans clutched in his hand. This'll double the Southfield's yield, he murmured. Change. Everything. He kissed her forehead. Gratitude overwhelming words. That afternoon, they walked the snow-dusted property, the silence broken only by the crunch of their boots. At a rise overlooking the farm, Lauren paused, her breath clouding the air. I love this place, she said, her gaze sweeping the fields. It's where we'll build our life. Ethan nodded, the ring on her finger a tangible promise. Their wedding was planned for summer, in these fields. Simple, but theirs. Lauren's move to Riverdale was already in motion. She'd work remotely, traveling to Detroit as needed, her condo now a secondary home. The Legacy line, renamed the Mitchell Legacy line, was on track for an 18-month launch, its prototypes refined by Ethan's tests. The first pickup, nicknamed Hope, stood in his barn, its steel frame a testament to their shared vision. Vehicles built to endure, like his father's Ford, like their love dot as dusk fell. They sat by the fireplace, cider mugs warming there. Hands, the tree's lights casting soft shadows. Lauren nestled against Ethan, her head on his shoulder. Happy? She asked, her voice soft. More than I thought possible, Ethan said, his arm tightening around her. This is the farm, the project. It's a legacy I never dreamed of. Lauren smiled, her fingers tracing the ring. It's just the beginning, isn't it? The beginning of ours, Ethan agreed, kissing her temple. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the land in quiet promise. 6 months ago, a broken alternator had brought them together. Now, they were building something unbreakable, a life, a love, a line of vehicles meant to carry stories through generations. This tale of Ethan and Lauren is more than a romance. It's a celebration of human connection, resilience, and the pursuit of authenticity in a world often driven by fleeting trends. Ethan, a farmer tethered to his land, embodies the enduring spirit of those who build and mend, refusing to let hardship erase their roots. Lauren, an heiress seeking meaning beyond wealth, reminds us that true innovation serves people, not profits. Their unlikely partnership, forged by chance, strengthened by trust, shows that love and purpose can bridge divides, whether between rural and urban, tradition and progress, or heart and ambition. The story's heart lies in its call to value what lasts. The legacy line, like Ethan's truck, is a metaphor for relationships and legacies built with care, meant to weather time's storms. It challenges us to ask, what do we create that endures? What do we mend instead of discard? Ethan and Lauren's journey teaches us that authenticity, being seen for who we are, not what we own, fosters connection, while resilience turns obstacles into opportunities. Their love, rooted in mutual respect and shared dreams, inspires us to seek partnerships that uplift and endure. If this story moved you, join our community at Legacy Stories. Subscribe to our channel for more tales of love, resilience, and legacies that inspire. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what legacy are you building? Hit the bell to never miss a story that reminds us what it means to create something real. Thank you for being part of our journey. Let's keep building legacies together. Betty nodded approvingly. That's Ethan for you. Salt of the earth. Been rough since his dad passed, though. Farm's struggling, like most around here. She leaned in, lowering her voice. Big companies like AgriCorp don't help, circling like vultures. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, but Lauren's eyes softened with understanding. Over meatloaf and mashed potatoes, their conversation drifted to lighter topics. Thunderstorms they both loved, the chaos of cities they both disliked. Lauren laughed at Ethan's story of getting his truck stuck in a mud pit at 16, and he found himself grinning at her tale of sneaking into her grandfather's garage to tinker with car engines as a kid dot as he drove her back to the inn. The stars beginning to pierce the twilight, Ethan realized he hadn't thought about the bank or the irrigation system all day. Lauren's presence was like a break in the clouds, brief but welcome. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked as he pulled into the lot. "If you're sure you want to see more of nowhere," Ethan said, half teasing. "I do," Lauren replied, her smile lingering as she stepped out. "Good night, Ethan." He watched her disappear into the inn, the warmth of her voice staying with him as he drove home. But as he passed the kitchen counter, Mark Sullivan's card caught his eye, a stark reminder of the reality waiting for him. Lauren Mitchell might be a pleasant distraction, but his problems weren't going anywhere, and neither was he.